might stick out to you. And when we do get to that, I'm very excited as we do pull up, yeah, Sosuke's first. And immediately off the bat, we have a Choice Specs Calyrex Shadow Rider with a Pollen Puff and Shadow Ball, which is definitely new, but paired with that Indeedee female, setting up the Psychic Surge to be able to go for those devastating expanding forces, supported by a Whimsicott, Ursaluna, and Koraidon, and not to mention the Walking Wake as well, which I don't think we've seen a lot of, a lot of this season.
Yeah, the Walking Wake is a really interesting choice, giving a lot more adaptability to sort of focus on different types of damage, even in the sun being able to use those water attacks. But as you called out, really one of the pivotal things for Luke to be able to respond to here is going to be this incredible power from the Choice Specs Expanding Force Shadow Rider, supported by that Indeedee with the redirection and the Psychic Surge to set up that Psychic terrain. That's just so extraordinarily much damage potential, and it gives Sasuke such a clear, strong line that he can always fall back on, that the onus is really going to be on Luke to be able to follow up on and be able to adjust to.
Yeah, and I think with Helping Hand as well as the Choice Specs, just boosting that damage to the max, making sure that this Shadow Rider, if unresponded to, will just put in so much work against Luke's team, as we see the reveal of it here. That being the Calyrex Ice Rider and Miraidon, a duo I have been personally waiting for the entire weekend. Also paired up with a couple of, normal Pokemon like the Urshifu, the Farigiraf, and Landorus, but Luke's unique pick here being the Iron Hands, another Pokemon past and present, the Iron Hands and the Walking Wake, both Pokemon not normally seen nowadays in the Regulation I.
Yeah, things we were mentioning about the metagame being a little bit different for juniors than masters. Even though Walking Wake and Iron Hands have a couple of really strong results in masters, they haven't been as big in this tournament, but they seem to have been working really, really well for these players as options to fall back on. Iron Hands, of course, just has so much potential if it gets that Cork Drive set up. It's got so much good supportive ability. It's also one of the it's the only Pokemon with an Assault Vest, so it becomes one of very few Pokemon that can maybe potentially take some attacks from that Calyrex Shadow Rider, which might wind up coming up a little bit in this matchup. The other thing I really want to shout out about the team, though, this Choice Scarf Miraidon that we've been seeing picking up popularity in the Masters division, Luke also has, and with that Snarl and the ability to change the terrain, it might be one of his main tools to respond to that Psychic Terrain Expanding Force Calyrex Shadow Rider option.
As well as resetting the terrain as well in favor with the electric terrain, you also have Choice Scarf, allowing you to outspeed something like the Calyrex Shadow Rider with Miraidon, which you otherwise normally wouldn't be able to do, as well as Snarl. And that's going to be very helpful because it gets around any sort of follow me from the Indeedee that could potentially come out to redirect a otherwise like parting shot from a Incineroar typically. But we are going to get into the game here. Walking Wake and Koraidon, the lead from Sosuke, and Luke off with the Calyrex Ice and the Miraidon.
So a lot of restrictors from Luke's side of the field, but Sosuke really giving us a show and showing off that Walking Wake, which is going to be able to get a fair bit of speed from his photosynthesis, one would assume, but that's going to be maybe not quite so helpful against this Miraidon that outspeeds it. I think there's a lot of pressure exerted right now from that Miraidon's ability to just throw off a Draco Meteor into either spot. And so I think the onus is really on Sosuke to find a way to navigate this first turn with so much pressure from that Miraidon on the other side.
And even if you Terastallize out of a weakness there from the Draco Meteor into either of these Pokemon, as you mentioned, not only do you have the possibility of getting it wrong, the Draco Meteor is still going to hurt. Being Choice Specs boosted, or excuse me, not Choice Specs boosted, but Hadron boosted from the Miraidon, is going to still be doing a lot of damage, even if it is coming off a Choice Scarf Pokemon. But we do actually see a swap of the Miraidon there, maybe realizing how much pressure it exerts and saving that for later as the Farigiraf comes in instead in its place. With that Electric Seed being boosted there for Luke, as well as going to give it a defense boost against a potential Koraidon attack. Walking Wake going for Protect, maybe predicting one of those moves that Miraidon could go for into the slot, and Koraidon Protect as well, scouting out to see what the Choice Scarf Miraidon maybe wants to lock into. Calyrex, though, is going to fail Protect there on Luke's side, though. Everyone wanting to play defensive this turn.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. Luke, having led with so much pressure, does have the option to do a bunch with the Miraidon, but there's so much risk there because it can take so much damage back in return. So very wisely, Sosuke just trying to figure out, okay, what's the Miraidon going to lock into? And they're saying, okay, I maybe don't want to be in this uncomfortable high-risk situation. Just pivoting to that Farigiraf keeping the Calyrex Ice Rider safe. So we've had a turn 1, but the players have just sort of repositioned and sort of set themselves up so that now the damage trades are likely to happen going into this second turn, with Luke really leaning into this option for some Trick Room here.
Yeah, and Trick Room is definitely a real possibility, but we are going to see a Terrassalization from the Koraidon there on Sosuke's side, and into that Terrifier to create its Flare Blitzes to such an explosive degree. With this Terrassalization too, you also are posing yourself to not be weak to that Glacial Lance anymore, as well as that Draco Meteor from the Miraidon that we know is in the back. Hydra's theme though, going off from the Calyrex there on Luke's side into the Protect, and notably as well, able to go for it because it failed last turn. Flare Blitz though, into this +1 defense Friggraph is still going to do a ton of damage in the sun, and with that Terrifier boost. Though with the recoil from Flare Blitz is going to have to take a little bit of chip. The Friggraph on Luke's side sets up the Trick Room, and now this Calyrex Ice is suddenly in a really good spot.
That Electric Seed putting in so much work for the Friggraph, like completely making the difference in whether or not the Friggraph was able to survive that hugely powerful attack from the Koraidon. And now with Trick Room set up, Friggraph has really done its job. It's got a few more options with like Helping Hand to be able to power up that Calyrex Ice Rider, which is pretty threatening. But the big thing is this Calyrex Ice Rider that looks like it's being set up with a Terastallization, becoming that fire type, is going to be threatening so much damage now with 4 turns of Trick Room and a powerful Glacial Lance that it can fire off.
And speaking of fire, we're going to see a Terrassalization there from Luke's Calyrex Ice into the Terrifier, and with a Helping Hand is maybe going to go for a explosive attack as the Walking Wake on Sosuke's side is going for Protect to block any potential damage. This Glacial Lance, though, even into a resisted Koraidon thanks to that Terrifier, is still going to hurt. More importantly, though, the Terrifier here on Luke's side is going to be great at blocking any potential damage, but instead is the Friggraph and is going to have to take a collision course and get knocked out there. So Luke is down a Pokemon and now has to find a replacement for it to come in under this Trick Room.
Sosuke saying that he really does not want those Helping Hand Glacial Lances to be firing off into any other Pokemon, but unfortunately does have to open up this position now for Luke to bring in something else. And it looks like with Luke bringing that Iron Hands you shouted out earlier, Tyson, that's going to be a whole lot of pressure, not just a Fake Out, but of a lot of really powerful attacks from a slow attacker. That's all fired up thanks to that Electric Terrain and able to do a ton of damage with the Quark Drive active.
Yeah, and with this Quark Drive active, you are able to go for a Fake Out, potentially into this Walking Wake, or double into it, considering you just went for Protect last turn. So Luke keeping up the pressure as well with this swap into the Iron Hands, as Sosuke recognizes that pressure once again and swaps in the Aditi. And this is great because not only are you resetting the Electric Terrain into your own Psychic Terrain, you're blocking a Fake Out as well. So you're removing 2 potential options there from Luke, either in the damage or in that Fake Out. But Luke going for a straight low kick into the Walking Wake and a high horsepower into the Koraidon slot, was just trying to go for as much damage as possible, not really, maybe slowing himself down with a Fake Out. And a Hydra's theme there from Sosuke's Walking Wake is going to be able to do a decent amount of damage to that Calyrex as well.
Super effective damage there into the Calyrex Ice Rider. Really a testament to Calyrex Ice Rider's bulk that it was able to take that so well. But it's not going to be able to take another one. So Sosuke really doing a good job of weathering through the really terrifying output potential from this Calyrex Ice Rider and pivoting in that Ndidi to preserve the Koraidon for later. There's still a lot more turns of Trick Room to make it through, so we're going to have to see what Sosuke's plan is for those last 2 turns. It looks like that Protect is how Sosuke's going to start things off.
Yeah, and Protect there. Like you said, the Drain Punch, though, going into the Ndidi slot instead. Not going to be healing up as Iron Hands hasn't taken damage, but a Glacial Lance to follow up is going to get the knockout here on the Ndidi, and that's going to be a +1 there for Luke's Calyrex. But the turns of Trick Room are ticking down, and with the HP that it's at, I'm not sure that Luke really has it in the Calyrex to get another one up. With the sunlight fading as well, as the Photosynthesis goes away on the Walking Wake, gets the reactivated there with the booster energy.
Poor Walking Wake, though, it's been sitting at boosted speed this whole time in Trick Room, so it really hasn't helped it very much without speeding things. We're going to see Sosuke send out that Koraidon once more, but its Protect is now reset because it just switched out, and so it has the option to potentially just stall out the rest of this Trick Room by going for one more Protect. And then the Sosuke is really going to be in the driver's seat with a whole lot of damage potential, and all of the Trick Room options on Luke's side are already fainted, or in Calyrex Ice Rider's case, pretty low on hit points. So that gives Sosuke some opportunity to come back in this game, having been a little bit behind in damage right now.
being able to reset the sun as well and catch the Iron Hands in such an awkward position as well, where maybe you feel like you have to swap it out to reset the terrain in your favor with the Miraidon, is maybe a play that Luke can make here. Considering it's the last turn of Trick Room, a double protect there from Sosuke's side is relatively telegraphed, as we just see Luke swap out for, the Miraidon to reset the terrain and get advantage in his next upcoming turn. Because even with the speed boost there on the Walking Wake, it's not going to be faster than a Choice Scarf from Rhydon, as we see first the Protect on the Koraidon, and then a Protect on the Walking Wake, but is actually going to fail instead. And this Glacial Lance now is going to be able to knock it out. Now it is at +1, and Sosuke has to swap in the last Pokemon.
This Calyrex Ice Rider really powered up, but going to be pretty low hit points as Trick Room ends here. But I gotta shout out, this has been a wonderful play from Luke, sort of predicting that double protect on the last turn of Trick Room, and getting this Choice Scarf Miraidon in at exactly the right time. This Calyrex Shadow Rider that's entering the field now would have been almost impossible to answer if Miraidon were not on the field, being able to get some faster damage off. Even still, it looks like that Calyrex Shadow Rider is going to be a really big threat, but because the Miraidon's faster, it has a couple of options here at least, to maybe try to pick off the Koraidon with a Volt Switch before the Calyrex Shadow Rider is able to attack, or maybe start working on that Calyrex Shadow Rider's damage output with Snarl. All the same though, this Calyrex Shadow Rider with the Choice Specs just has so much damage output that it's going to be really a challenge for Luke to be able to find a way through that damage, given that Trick Room is up, even with that Miraidon.
Yeah, absolutely. We see a Protect there from Luke's Calyrex, preserving the amount of damage that it's been able to do this entire game. A Volt Switch there from the Miraidon, able to finish off the Koraidon, though, completely ignoring this Calyrex Shadow here on Sosuke's side. Being able to switch out, though, into the Iron Hands here, it means that you're going to be able to eat this Astral Barrage or whatever the Sosuke's Calyrex Shadow wants to go for a lot better. Unfortunately, though, because it is a Ghost type, you can't go for a Fake Out or anything like that to maybe reset up a Trick Room and solidify the game. But I think with a Choice Scarf from Miraidon in the back, guaranteeing the outspeed here on the Calyrex Shadow Rider, you are in a fine position to win if you are Luke.
Yeah, the only challenge is this Calyrex Shadow Rider is going to be... Oh, wow! That's actually not a 2-hit KO on that Iron Hands. That's going to be really important information going forwards. Even with the Choice Specs on the Calyrex Shadow Rider, if this Iron Hands is able to survive and do even just a little bit of chip damage, that's really going to solidify the game. And with Luke surviving with 4 hit points on the Iron Hands, that's going to be a chance to do just a little bit of damage and make sure that that Calyrex Shadow Rider is comfortably going to be knocked out by the Miraidon on the other side of the field next turn. We're going to have to see that Wild Charge going out, boosted by the Electric Terrain, by the person. This doesn't even need the Miraidon. That Iron Hand's really putting in work, showing why Luke's chosen to pick this Pokemon that hasn't been used quite so much in the Masters Division, really clutching things out for him at the end of this first game.
And you can see that small grin on his face as well, recognizing that spot that he was in. Being able to make sure that that Astral Barrage, even from a Choice Specs Calyrex, was not a 2-hit KO guaranteed there on the Iron Hands. It was absolutely amazing for Luke being able to get that attack off of the Iron Hands. Makes that endgame a lot better, right? Because then you have a single target plus 1 attack, or plus 2 if you get rid of the Iron Hands as well, into the Miraidon. It becomes a lot more scary of an endgame. Luckily, you are Choice Scarf, so you do have the advantage as long as you can live that, but that's easier said than done to live essentially a +3, the +2 plus the Choice Scarf to live a +3 Astral Barrage.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Luke's got to be really happy that that Iron Hands was able to put in so much work, all of that training put in to get its special defense stat high enough with the Assault Vest to be able to survive those attacks. And as we review this game, I just really love the way that Luke played this. Positioning that Miraidon in at exactly the right moment to take out the Koraidon, being able to pivot out and have it in the back still. Just, Luke brought absolutely the right Pokemon to this game and executed so well on this Trick Room game plan with the Electric Terrain Miraidon preserved in the back to sort of set things up at the end, use that Choice Scarf once Trick Room was gone.
I think really taking good advantage there of each of the Pokemon on his team, really using them to their strengths. Frigga, for example, not really a Pokemon known to do damage, but providing the exact support it needed to do. That was the Helping Hand and the Trick Room, and really that's all it needed to do. And then once that was done, it was fine to go off the field because that meant a free swap into something like the Iron Hands or the Miraidon later in the game. And I think Luke really positioning around that and recognizing, what each Pokemon was meant to do on the team and playing to their strengths and also their weaknesses really worked in Luke's favor.
Yeah, I really loved seeing that. Farigiraf clearly designed to be able to take physical hits with that Electric Seed to boost its defense. Iron Hand's clearly designed to take special hits decently well with that Assault Vest. And he really was able to set up all these situations where he was relying on the Farigiraf against the physical attacker and the Iron Hands against the special attacker. Like, it was just so precisely executed as a game to be able to leverage each of these Pokemon's defensive strengths in those moments where he needed to set up a Trick Room or reposition to get that Miraidon back in later on. And so I love seeing the two non-restricteds that Luke picked. I'd expect to see those two again, and the onus is really on Sosuke to be able to adjust effectively and find something that's going to work into this option. And now we're zooming in on the faces of these trainers, going to be able to jump into this starting set as Whimsicott and Koraidon hit the field on the left. And we're going to see that double restricted lead from Luke, just like last time. But I really like this Whimsicott. It's an interesting adjustment. It does have that Endeavor option, a really unique choice. So maybe later in the game, it's going to be able to try to leverage that with its Focus Sash, surviving an attack and going for an Endeavor a little later on. And at the start here, it does threaten even that Choice Scarf Miraidon by being able to Tailwind and boost up that Koraidon. So it leaves some interesting decisions for Luke to make in terms of how to handle this lead situation. We're going to think a little bit more for both players as they try to decide how they want to navigate what is going to be a really explosive and volatile turn. There's so much damage potential from the Whimsicott and Koraidon. But at the same time, that Calyrex Ice Rider probably feels pretty comfortable about its position. It has that Terrassalization option into the Fire type to be not so vulnerable to the Flare Blitz from the Koraidon. And that's going to mean that it's in a really powerful situation to be able to set up that Trick Room option. And once it does, that's going to make situations pretty powerful for Luke's side of the field. As we see the Miraidon pivoting out immediately, not going to risk going for that Volt Switch because it doesn't want to have to deal with that Tailwind plus Koraidon attack option. Just the same play as last time, pivoting into that Farigiraf, getting the defense boost from the electric terrain, and we're going to actually see that Koraidon protecting, trying to avoid damage from the Miraidon in return. We're going to have to see what this Whimsicott goes for, as Calyrex once again protects, just like Luke did last time. Whimsicott, the only Pokemon left with an option to attack, just going for a taunt into that Calyrex Ice Rider.
Yeah, and that taunt's going to be absolutely huge. I think, if Sosuke wants a chance to stop this Trick Room, that taunt is obviously a very surefire way to do it. You do have to be careful, though, of that Farigiraf that is on the field there for Luke. That is going to unfortunately stop the Whimsicott from going for any of those prankster moves with the priority.
So we're going to see a Terrassalization coming in now on the Koraidon. If Taunt's not going to work, if stopping the Trick Room that way won't work, then you have to do damage the old-fashioned way, and we're just going to be setting up a Fire Terra so that the Koraidon's not so weak to the Glacial Lance from the Calyrex Ice Rider, but also so that it can threaten some more damage with the Flare Blitz. Luke sees that coming, though, and is going to go for a Fire Terrassalization on that Calyrex Ice Rider, setting up a resistance to fire damage, which is going to be so crucial if you want to make it through this turn with that Koraidon threatening so much power.
Endeavor, though, coming out from the Whimsicott to bring Farigiraf into a little bit of a lower HP range, and Flare Blitz into the Farigiraf instead of the Calyrex Ice Rider is going to be able to get the knockout there with a critical hit as well to guarantee it.
Really nice play from Sosuke. The question is, did Luke go for a Trick Room with the Calyrex Ice Rider? And it looks like no. Went for that Glacial Lance. Going to bring Whimsicott down, but with the Focus Sash, Whimsicott's still up at 1 hit point, and it still has a chance to set up Tailwind later, and Koraidon having Terrassalize into that Fire type, really comfortably surviving this turn. That's such a crucial knockout for Sosuke to take, and it really changes this game from what we saw last time.
Yeah, and I really like that Endeavor play. Normally, a lot of players wait to click it until you are at a 1 HP, but clicking in that scenario allowed Sosuke to get the knockout with the Flare Blitz, and I think recognizing that how much you did with Flare Blitz last time and knowing that Whimsicott can get Farigiraf down to that HP range is a very heads-up play that I think even a lot of Masters wouldn't make. But we do see the Iron Hand swap in there for Luke there in an effort to maybe go for a fake-out play, to maybe get that Trick Room set up for the Calyrex Ice. The problem, though, now is that the Whimsicott has access to that taunt, Prankster taunt into the Calyrex Ice, as well as Endeavor, which could be, detrimental to both of these Pokemon. Bringing it down to 1 HP would mean the end if Koraidon doubled up into that slot. You do have to be careful, though, of the Iron Hands fake out, because even if you're not able to fake it out, you are able to just knock out the Whimsicott, as we see here, with the fake out onto Sosuke's Whimsicott.
A really heads-up play from Luke, just really not wanting to deal with that 1 HP Endeavor option from Sosuke's side of the field. A bit risky because Psychic Terrain could have been set up, but instead it's just going to be the Koraidon going for a Flare Blitz, trying to take out that pesky Iron Hands that was such a problem before, but leaving the Calyrex pretty crucially with an opportunity to set up that Trick Room now. It didn't get a chance last turn, but it's happy to do this now that that Koraidon's really low HP and in danger from a potential Glacial Lance.
Yeah, and I think setting up Trick Room there was really dangerous because, yes, you bring in Walking Wake here and it's decently healthy, but with Terrestrialization spent, this Walking Wake is not going to want to have to face down a Glacial Lance from this Calyrex Ice Rider in Trick Room as well. And because of how late into the game Luke has set this up as well, Glacial Lance is definitely going to be the move of choice from the next turn, for the next few turns. And with Iron Hand surviving that Flare Blitz as well, it's going to be able to support whatever KO that Luke's Calyrex Ice can't get, as Sosuke's Koraidon goes for protecting Walking Wake, a protect as well.
Yeah, Sosuke really needs to burn through this Trick Room if that's the Calyrex Shadow Rider in the back. Gonna take a low kick into that protect on the Walking Wake slot, and likely a Glacial Lance into both of these. Yep, that's confirmed. So Sosuke buying a little bit of time with Trick Room, but not advancing the board state very much. It looks like exactly those same attacks again from Luke's side of the field is pretty close to guaranteeing a double knockout on Sosuke's side. So Luke has really set up this Trick Room phenomenally, and crucially, because that Iron Hand survived that really powerful Flare Blitz, it's just able to do that little bit of extra damage needed to make sure that that Walking Wake even is in a lot of danger here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, if you are Sosuke, it's really limiting in terms of options of what you can do. Maybe, you find a double protect somewhere in there and you still have enough time for Calyrex Shadow Rider to come in here. But the real problem is that, yeah, you are going to have to swap the Walking Wake to preserve that water damage into Calyrex. And yeah, it has to come in here on this Glacial Lance, but being choice specs, you don't have the option of protecting for Sosuke. So you really have to just trade HP here, and that's really the only option. As Koraidon, though, gets the double protect for Sosuke. That's one protect closer to getting out of Trick Room. Low kick, though, into the Walking Wake slot as a Glacial Lance falls up into it. If it is able to hang on here, this is still playable.
Definitely, switching into the immunity was really powerful, but with the Calyrex Shadow Rider hanging on, definitely not going to be able to take another of those Glacial Lances. And with 2 more turns of Trick Room left, it's going to be really tough for Sosuke now. I think almost everything on the field is KO'd by Glacial Lance, and the Pokemon in the back is not going to be enough to clean this match out. And Calyrex Shadow Rider can't even protect because it has the choice specs, so it's going to be really tough for Sosuke to make it through the last couple of turns here. We're going to see the Calyrex Shadow Rider pivoting out, back into the Walking Wake. It really needs to stay around to be able to finish off this end game. Walking Wake pivoting back in, and we're going to see the Koraidon maybe going for a Protect or something. As first, we're going to see that Photosynthesis activating. This poor Walking Wake, its speed keeps getting boosted, but it keeps being in Trick Room. And that Drain Punch is going to finish off the Koraidon, healing up that Iron Hands just a little bit. But the important thing is Sosuke's now down to just 2 Pokemon, and that Glacial Lance that's about to come out is going to be single target on this poor Walking Wake. We'll have to see how much damage that does. If it's a KO, then Luke has all but guaranteed being a world champion. Glacial Lance coming out into that Walking Wake, and it's gonna be a lot of damage, but that Walking Wake showing off its bulk. Still has about a quarter of hit points left. At this point, though, things are looking pretty tough for Sosuke. 2 Pokemon at 25% health versus 3 Pokemon on Luke's side of the field, and there's still a turn of Trick Room up, and that Calyrex Shadow Rider cannot protect. So it's definitely going down this next turn, and that's going to make things pretty tough for Sosuke going forwards. It looks like Luke just has a couple more turns, has to be thinking about potentially becoming crowned as a world champion as this Calyrex Ice Rider and Iron Hands select their last move in Trick Room. We're going to have to see what that is shortly.
And I really like the way Luke has positioned himself under this Trick Room as well to kind of get as much damage as possible and really use the fact that he set up Trick Room at the stage of the game that he did. The Miraidon here swapping in, though, to preserve that Iron Hand and the potential Fake Out as the Walking Wake there for Sosuke goes for the Protect. Calyrex has to go for that Glacial Lance, though, and Sosuke's Calyrex has to take it, unfortunately, here, and at this range, I'm not sure if it's going to be able to survive. Luke also having that...
Yeah, definitely. very convincing way of ending this Trick Room out. Calyrex Ice Rider with a nice attack boost, and the Miraidon once again coming in on the last turn of Trick Room, able to go for this Electro Drift and crown Luke Whittier as the world champion in the juniors division for 2025. Congratulations to Luke for 2 phenomenally executed game plans. Oh, and the family cheering and everything, so sweet. We're gonna be jumping to an interview soon, I believe, but congratulations to Luke for 2 incredibly well-played games, really executing on this wonderful concept and navigating what I think was a really tough matchup, setting up those Trick Rooms really effectively to make it through a really threatening Calyrex Shadow Rider. I'm really impressed by Luke's play here. One more thing to shout out, these players both really were able to execute, demonstrate how powerful they were. They brought some really amazing teams. They executed a lot of really good strategies, and I think we're going to jump into replays shortly to be able to showcase some of those key decisions that they made. We see the Koraidon going for a Flare Blitz. Getting that KO on the Fridge was so huge. I really loved how Sosuke adjusted. That Endeavor and Flare Blitz, especially with the Whimsicott being faster, really demonstrated that Sosuke has a ton of skills that are going to serve him very well if he continues in Pokemon. I was so impressed at this game plan. And the crucial turn was just that Iron Hands confidently going for Fake Out into the Whimsicott, even though there was a risk of Psychic Terrain being set up, really was enough to guarantee that this Trick Room could get set up this turn, and was really an excellent way of managing that Whimsicott's ability to deal with things like Taunt.
Yeah, and I think Taunt as well being a kind of pivotal piece, but unfortunate that you can't really do it in the face of a Farigiraf. Farigiraf there blocking the priority move really allowed Luke to get in a spot. Even with, again, going down, was able to set up Trick Room with the Calyrex Ice Rider instead. And that's kind of the benefit of these teams is you have 2 options there to set up the Trick Room. It's not just one way. There's 2 in the Farigiraf and the Calyrex Ice. But Sosuke, unfortunately, is going to lose. And Luke Whittier is going to be your junior final or winner of the World Championships.
Congratulations to Luke, a very well-deserved title, and I was really impressed seeing that play. I think we were talking before the match, and I was certainly expecting that the Indeedee and Shadow Rider team was going to be able to just dominate, but Luke had such a clear plan and some really well-trained Pokemon that Iron Hands survived so many attacks, and it really just pulled things through for Luke.
Yeah, I think the big thing that we didn't have the knowledge of as well is that Iron Hands not getting to it KO'd by that Astral Barrage was very big reveal in game 1, and definitely I feel like threw Sosuke off their game plans there to maybe get that knockout and be able to win the game that way. But if they were able to, I think that game is very different as well. And I think with things like Farigiraf as well, it's kind of maybe deceptively good. It's not,
amazing. And also amazing. This is insane.
Yeah? What's it like being up on this big stage?
Crazy.
There's lots of people here cheering for you. They're excited. Is there anyone you want to say hello or thank you to?
I would like to say thank you to all my friends in the USA and also to my parents and my coach, Christopher Hahn.
Thank you all for that support. And let's hear it one more time for Luke Whittier. Thank you, Luke. We'll let you go celebrate off.
Wonderful to see.
That was so heartwarming.
Yeah, absolutely. Look so excited to have won with a wonderful coach. It sounds like a wonderful support system. Really exciting to see these young players really catching such a love for the game and having such cool communities around that.
Yeah, and funny as well is that Chris Hahn as well, being someone who also aged up from those divisions, just made his way into Masters, graduating throughout all those divisions as well. So to pass that knowledge on to the next generation is always amazing to see.
It makes me wonder now who Luke is going to coach as he engages up into later divisions. But we're going to be jumping pretty far.
Welcome, Kevin. And now to challenge, please welcome from Korea, Xian Lee.
All right, we're going to be jumping straight into the seniors division with 2 players being introduced, pushing through all of these wonderful matches as Xian Li is able to enter. We're going to be able to pause for a sec for a quick interview here.
Welcome to the stage. We just have a quick moment with each of you, so I want to know what's going through your head right now. What are you doing to try to prepare for the match?
I'm feeling very nervous, but I'm very excited. It's the first time Worlds has hosted an arena like this, and I get to experience it.
That's awesome. We're rooting for you both. What about you? What's going through your mind right now as you prepare for the match?
예, 선수님 지금 마음이 어떠신가요?
지금 굉장히 행복합니다.
I am just so happy to be here.
We have time for one more question. So, what do you want the audience to watch for? What's going to be your signature, the coolest thing that you do? What do you want to be known for that they can look for?
Glacial Lance.
All right, you heard it. And same question, what should the audience look for? What will they remember about your play?
선수님 경기에서 주의 볼 게 하나가 있을까요?
오버폰이 잘해줄 것 같습니다.
My overpun is pretty great.
All right, keep your eyes open. Go ahead and take your seats.
Some really exciting little words from these players as